What is going on, people, and welcome back to the channel. I have a very interesting video for you today, and we are at Rivos Hub to view Richie's car. Now, for those that haven't heard, Rivos Hub is a carbs and coffee shop. So motorcyclists and car owners alike can come into Rivos Hub. You can get your coffee in here, you're surrounded by loads of cool merch. I mean, just look over here, you've got some little snap-on wristbands there and some stuff made out of some engineering parts there. Super interesting setup, and one of the very few places in, well, the south of England where you can get a graffiti wall. But as you can see there, the car in question is just sitting over there, and I know we're going to go into it later in the video, but if you know what that is, looking from that blurry image now, then drop it in the comments below, because I'll be interested to see how many of you know what this is, because I certainly didn't, and I've done a little bit of research on it for today's video. Now, I reckon for 99% of people watching my channel, you probably didn't guess what this was. Now, I'm going to tell you now, it's a Volkswagen, and they don't usually sit ridiculously low like this. This one has actually been modified with hydraulics. These vehicles go by a number of names. In the UK, it's a Volkswagen Trekker. In America, you might know it as a Volkswagen Thing. In South America, it's known as the Volkswagen Safari, and in Germany, it was known as a Volkswagen Courier Wagon, or for the mil-spec vehicles, the Kübelwagen, which roughly means bucket seat car. Now, this is a special car if it was standard, but this is a little bit more special because Richie's done quite a lot of work to it, and this is his personal project. This is not like a business project or anything. This is a vehicle that he truly adores, and he's put a lot of work in to get it to this standard. Now, I'm not going to give you a VW Thing review today because I believe there's videos already on the internet like that, and I'm not the guy to tell you some key features about this car because I'm just learning about it now. But what we can do is we can show you what Richie's done to it to make it into this, and I'm going to say it's definitely a Marmite car. I personally think it's amazing, but after just chatting to Richie for a few minutes there, a lot of the scene doesn't quite like it. And yeah, well, maybe we've got a purist scene on this at the moment, but I think this looks well cool. So let's go through some of the features. So first of all, can we just see how low this thing is? And I know it's on hydraulics, so it can be lowered and raised as it sits, but look at his edge. It's completely parallel to the floor. He's got some little side steps here, which aren't a standard feature on these. He's put these on himself. But the way this thing sits when it's resting, you know, I think if this were parked next to a Lamborghini Aventador, there'd be more pictures taken of this for sure. And then moving a little bit further back, or to each corner of the vehicle, it's sat on some Porsche wheels that nicely tuck away into the wheel arches there. Super neat feature. I love this colour, very similar to the van what I did. I'm a big fan of this brown. So these vehicles were manufactured in Germany from 1968 to 1983. They were originally conceived as a military spec vehicle, which this one actually is. This is a German import, and it did start off life as a military vehicle. It's a rear-wheel drive, 4-door convertible, which on paper sounds like quite a luxurious car, but it is very basic. It is a super basic car. Its obvious design was to be an effective military vehicle, and the way that they did that were make it so that the only things that exist on it are the absolute bare necessities and the essential things that you need to get by in a military setting. So Richie got this car 6 years ago, and he's been working on it ever since, and it's still considered to him unfinished, although it does look like a very nice vehicle as it's sat here today. He's had a lot of custom work done to this. You know, like we said, the wheels are obviously a custom paint job. He's also had a custom exhaust on the back of it. The engine looks like it's had quite a bit of custom work to it. And I think one of the most striking things about this vehicle is the paint job. Now, this is known as the bare metal Thing, and that is because what you see here is the bare metal, and you might think the rust is coming through some grey paintwork, but that's not. He's clear coated straight over the bare metal, and then we've got some patina rust coming through, and I'm actually a massive fan of this look. I think it suits this vehicle perfectly. That combined with the perfectly finished black accents on the vehicle just make it look like it's more of a purposeful finish on this. And I just think it's such a good combination to have. This is the first time I reviewed a hydraulic vehicle, but I am spending a lot of time sat on the floor because it's that low. And another thing you might notice when you come to see this vehicle is this eagle on the front, and you would be mistaken for, you know, maybe thinking this is a sinister eagle, but this is actually an ADAC sign, so basically the German equivalent of AA, or if you're in America, basically roadside recovery. This is a badge for the ADAC of the period. Now, for some reason, ADAC aren't using an eagle as their logo anymore. Something must have happened to mean that it weren't that cool to use eagles as logos in Germany. but cool feature, looks really well on this vehicle. The interior, although super basic, is a really interesting place to be. You can see some of the original military paintwork in here. The seats creak and squeak as you get into it. This windscreen actually folds fully down, gets completely out of your way if you're about that life. We've got what I think are the original military covered seats in here. I mean, if not, then they look very military-esque. The dashboard is super simple. It makes me want a car like this. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 buttons, 7 if you include the hydraulic buttons. Like, yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Moving into the back, we have a similar looking bench to the front seats that can seat 2 more people sat on a piece of wood, and which moves me on to the safety of these vehicles. Now, this is probably one of the most dangerous vehicles on the road, and that's not because this one particular is dangerous, that's because they're super dangerous design. If you were to get into a crash in one of these, I wouldn't hedge your bets on coming out unharmed, because there's basically no support. We've got a tub style chassis with no supporting structures going across. Literally, when this door's open here, we've got a floating, what would be considered the B pillar, but it goes to nothing, doesn't support. Obviously, if you were to roll this, you would be completely flat. But I think even on a side impact, it wouldn't be a very nice place to be. But that adds to the charm, and I think a lot of classic vehicles suffer a similar fate. Maybe not as extreme as this one, but it does add to the charm. We've got a little bit of rubber trimming on the interior skin, just to stop you getting yourself cut up when going in and out of the pocket bins. But we've got some massive pocket bins that obviously weren't intended to be there for storage, but they realised after the fact of using the skinning method of using 2 shells of vehicle that could easily be a storage area. Again, super nice finish. It's got that rust patina coming through. So then moving on to the back of the vehicle, you can see that the edges again are trimmed with this nice rubber to stop yourself from being cut up by it. But in the back here, we have a hydraulic system, which Rich is nicely given a viewing window so you can see it in action. And of course, like many VWs of this period, it is rear engined. So under here is just the engine. We've got some nice vent holes there for the air-cooled engine, what would live in here. So another crazy little feature with these vehicles is that if you were feeling a little bit enclosed from your lack of windows and your windscreen down, and you wanted a little bit more space than that, you can open the door, pop a latch in here, and lift the door off, and it will drive without these doors. It'll be perfectly fine for you to drive. And chatting to Richie, I think this was introduced for some sort of military application. I know that most militaries have vehicles without doors, soft skin vehicles, but a nice little feature to have. And I mean, in modern day setting, this would be nice to take it for a drive down the beach without doors, without anything around, just expose the elements, almost like riding a motorbike, but at the comfort of 4 wheels. Now moving round to the front, or the bonnet, as we call it. We're presented with a fuel tank, and there would have been a spare wheel in here as well. Other than that, loads of storage space for your bags. So we might have had a bit of technical troubles there. I don't think I pressed record, which I was that ecstatic about driving it and setting it up. I didn't press record. But one of the first things I noticed about this vehicle is the pedal set is just pushed over to the right slightly. I'm not entirely sure why that is, because the engine's in the back, so we've not really got much space for the engine to take up to move the pedals over, which is usually the reason. But it's all wheel arch. They're not that wide wheels. I'm not sure why the wheel arch has come that far in. Obviously, turning radius takes a big part in that. But it's a super pleasant car to drive. And I'm not sure if that's because Richie's done a really good rebuild on it, or they're all like this, but it's an absolute dream to drive. Oh, shit, sorry mate.
That's alright.
It's impossible not to smile when getting in this thing. It just cheers you up in every single way. I've driven some special cars but nothing quite gets looks like this and makes you feel like this, in my experience anyway. I'm sure there's some people watching this that have driven things similar to this, and you can probably see where I'm coming from when I'm talking about it. But it makes you super happy driving this vehicle. And as you can probably tell, we've taken the doors off for the extra experience. It feels so weird having the road just there when you look out. So I'm the first person that's actually driven this, other than Richie himself, since his rebuild. So that feels that's quite a privilege to be the first guy driving this thing, and you know, you can probably tell from the look on my face. This makes me want to buy a classic car. Fucking hell. So I'm not sure how much that footage was usable, but you can probably tell by my face that that was an absolute joy to drive. This thing, you know, it's not, I thought that this was going to be an absolute nightmare on the road, but it's quite fitting for, you could easily use this as a daily drive around town. There's no troubles, and Richie uses it on a regular basis. Other than the fact that we've got no doors and no roof, it's a pretty nice experience. I mean, it's a nice experience on a day like today without any doors and roof, but I can imagine this would be a bit of an inconvenience if it were to start raining at any point.
It's happened before.
But I mean, I've driven some fancy cars. You know, I own a fancy car, but nothing gets looks like this. And people screaming at us, waving at us, taking pictures. On that short journey we just did, 10 minutes journey, you know, several people screaming and waving. So that is me finished this test drive, and you can probably tell by my face that that was an absolutely insane experience. A massive thanks to Rich at Rivos Hub for letting me experience this vehicle. And I mean, I am buying a classic car. I don't know what it is yet, but it's coming. So stick around on the YouTube channel to watch that build. If you want to see more about this vehicle, you can check out Rich's YouTube channel, where he's got a little bit more on this. And I'm sure there's lots of more content to come in the future on this car. If you are in the area, I do massively recommend you coming down to Rivos Hub, because there's some cool stuff here. And if you're a car enthusiast, this is a place for you. Other than that, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've certainly enjoyed making it. It's going to make my Aston Martin Vantage feel like a very ordinary vehicle driving home after this. So it's definitely been a great experience for me. I'll catch you guys in the next video.